You know, both Adam and Stefan mentioned technology, and that is something that I have learned a lot about when it comes to the way that government is influencing our lives on a day-to-day basis. Yes, sure, it does give us the ability to stand up and empower ourselves with knowledge, but it also gives the powers that be the ability to track, manipulate, control us in ways that are frightening, so to speak. You know, there's retinal scanners that can scan your eyeballs and identify who you are. There are facial scanners that can identify who you are. There are all sorts of ways that this technology can be used in an effort to control the populace. And I think we need to be paying close attention to that and doing what we can to ensure that we are not participating in the creation of such systematic abuses of the people here in these United States. Whether it is the real ID, the national ID card that the federal government decided they were going to shove down the throats of all the states, whether it is an iris scanner at the Travis County Jail in Austin, Texas for people who come in with certain classes of crimes that they're charged with, not convicted of, but charged with. Now, when you walk into the Travis County Jail, your eyeballs can be scanned by a machine. Now this hits really close to home for me because I have twice been arrested on free speech issues where the police were absolutely in the wrong and they decided to abuse their power as a peace officer and to kidnap me and to put me in a cage and to treat me like an animal, just as Adam was speaking about earlier. Now thankfully, when I went through that, they didn't have the retinal scanners. But now they do, and I have good friends that have been abused in the same way by our policing institutions. People who have been arrested for issues that are protected under the Constitution, whether it be John Bush, who you'll be hearing from later, who was arrested at an Obama rally 1 year before these iris scanners went into the jail. Had he been arrested a year later, they would have scanned his eyes. What an egregious overreach of power and a violation of our right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment. They have absolutely no standing in their behavior, but we as the people have been funding it with our tax dollars. We as the people have been willingly complacent by not doing anything to stop it. And today, that is what I'm here to talk to you about. The fact that laws do not control people. Whether they are the laws that are passed by politicians to control us, we the people, or laws that are passed by the people to control the government. Laws do not control people. Morality does. And we make decisions every day based on what we think is right and wrong. Whether it's a drug law passed by the government to stop people from smoking pot, has that stopped anybody in this room from smoking pot? Probably not.
Not me.
Whether it's the FDA passing regulations to keep our food safe, how many recalls have we heard? Those laws do not protect our food. Speed limits most certainly do not control the flow of traffic, and nor do those tickets that those pesky little officers tend to issue to us. No. Laws do not control the behavior of people. It is our sense of right and wrong. And most importantly for us here today to consider the highest law in the land, the United States Constitution. Does that document that was designed to protect we the people do anything to curb the behavior of the politicians who are violating our rights on a daily basis? No. It does not. Laws do not control people. They don't control me, they don't control you, and they most certainly do not control those who have stepped up and decided that they are in power. The only way that we can move from a culture of corruption to a culture of mutual respect and voluntary association is to change the conversation. We don't need to be talking about laws and legality. We need to be talking about morality. This society has been tainted by what the book 1984 referred to as doublespeak. Black is white, good is bad, up is down, wrong is right. But laws do not change behavior, morality does, and we need to be changing that conversation. I hear a lot about blame, people blaming the problems in our society on someone else. Whether it's the Democrats blaming the Republicans blaming the Democrats, the libertarians blaming the system, the impoverished blaming the 1% blaming the welfare state, the activists blaming the apathetic, or the anarchists blaming the politicos. Everyone has someone to blame, everyone has a finger to point, and the problems in this world are someone else's. But what if we were to look in the mirror and really study what it is that we as individuals are doing to contribute to this society, to this culture of corruption? What are we as individuals doing that is making this happen? Because ultimately, there is no one to blame but ourselves. You have the In the Fed activists out there saying, in the Federal Reserve, they're controlling our monetary system. Yet they still use the Federal Reserve note, the dollar bill, on a day-to-day basis. The anti-war activists still pay their income tax. They still fund the violence that they are so opposed to. Those who believe in the Second Amendment and our right to keep and bear arms, they still apply for a concealed carry license. Just gotta make sure the government knows who's armed, right? The fact of the matter is that changing society and changing culture is a long-term endeavor. It is a project that is going to take generations. And that change starts right here in this room. It starts with me. It starts with you. It starts with each of us sitting down and looking in the mirror and really studying what it is that we as individuals are doing to perpetuate this system that none of us are happy with. It requires taking ownership of our lives and taking responsibility of our actions. So that means first we must redefine the concept of right and wrong. A casualty of war is still murder, and no amount of fear-mongering can justify the systematic violence that we are inflicting all across the globe. Taxation is still theft, and no amount of good intentions can justify the guns pointed at those who do not want to fund the programs and projects that our government has put together for us. The use of a taser, it's not pain compliance, that is still torture. And these weapons are on our streets today and used against supposedly free people. We have to change the conversation, and we have to take responsibility for our own actions. How do you contribute to the things that you wish would change? How can you change your life and reframe your actions in a moral light instead of in a legal light? I know I personally have contributed to the system in many ways. Here in this part of the country, we learned last night at a dinner about the ways the oil companies are coming in and overrunning the land because they have the rights. Because they have the rights to the minerals that are underneath the ground. They're just coming in and abusing the property rights of the people who have worked their entire lives to purchase property, the American dream, right? It broke my heart, I'm going to be honest, listening to these people talk about everything that they care about being taken away from them. But you know what? I've used gasoline over and over and over. Every time I get in my car. Every time you get in your car, you use gasoline too. And if we want things to change, it's not going to be by pointing fingers and saying, you're the problem, oil company, you're the problem, government, for not stepping up and protecting us. It is going to take us looking in the mirror and saying, hi, my name is Catherine and I'm the problem. I am perpetuating this system. I could find an alternative. I could get a car that runs on diesel and I could create my own fuel. If I have a problem with the FDA and the way that they regulate, quote, organics, I could plant a garden and grow my own food. Every single issue that I have with the government that's so tempting to point fingers at and say, you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem, is something that ultimately on some level I am contributing to. And here I am standing in front of you acknowledging that. I've contributed to the problem, and that's something that we all need to do. We need to identify the ways in which we are contributing to the problem so that we can start contributing to the solution. For me, I spent years in politics. We had some successes. We went to the state house in Missouri and we stopped that pesky real ID, and Missouri wasn't going to get a federal driver's license. Well, now they're implementing it administratively. Who cares what the people say? Who cares what the representatives say? It's just going to be implemented by the Missouri Department of Transportation. We had some losses. We tried to push some 10th Amendment issues that didn't necessarily turn into anything. And it was ultimately not a waste of time because I learned a lot. I learned that laws don't control people, whether it be politicians or us as human beings. That is the lesson I learned by spending every day of my life making phone calls to my representatives, showing up at the state capitol, going to my city council, begging them to change their behavior and to change the rules that they were making for our society. And about a year ago, I decided, I'm going to change the way I live my life. I'm not going to go beg someone to let me live free. I'm going to take responsibility for my actions, and I am going to start living free, gosh darn it. I am going to start living free. And you know what? We got a bunch of chickens. Now we have fresh meat and fresh eggs. We planted a garden. I have 56 onions growing in my backyard right now. I'm proud of that. I've really been working bit by bit to take responsibility for my life and my actions and my contribution to what our society, all of our individual collective actions, they make our society, they make our culture. And I am changing my contribution. No, I haven't yet purchased a diesel, but I'm looking into it. I do want to get a diesel, and I do want to make my own gasoline, and I don't want to fund these disgusting institutions anymore. No, I don't have a, quote, job anymore. I closed out my 401k after it got cut down by like 75%, and I took that money and I traveled the country doing activism with a project called Operation Defuse, which further led me to believe that our government is using technology to abuse us, and further led me to believe that I am responsible for my own freedom. I made a commitment to myself. Bit by bit, piece by piece, I was going to change my life. I now barter for the resources that it takes to survive in my life. Unfortunately, not everyone uses silver, but we have really worked hard to build a silver economy in Austin. And if you have a problem with the Federal Reserve banking system, I would like to empower you to find a new way to exchange goods in your life. For us, it was turning our Federal Reserve notes into dollars, the extra ones that we had. And it was our Federal Reserve notes into silver, not dollars, silver dollars, real money. And it was asking for silver in exchange for the labor that we gave. So now we've built this network in Austin where you can get your hair cut with silver. You can go to the dentist and pay with silver. You can go to the veterinarian and pay with silver. You can go to the bookstore, Brave New Books, which we have a booth for in the back. You can pay with silver. We've worked hard to build this. Well, as John said last night, it really wasn't that hard. All we did was show up and ask, will you take silver for these products instead of the dollar? And every single person that we've approached so far has at least been willing to consider it. Some of them weren't able to pay their bills in silver, so they had to take the FRNs, but they heard us out and they agreed. The dollar is fast crashing, and we have to build systems that are functioning despite the powers that be. Because when that system crashes, who's going to be left holding the buck for our lives? That's us. We are ultimately the only people who are responsible for our own survival. And I don't just want to survive, I want to thrive. So I'm going to work now, every single day, to make sure that I am doing things to change the way I'm living my life. Whether it's getting my hair cut with silver, or going to the bookstore with silver, or teaching other people about silver. We have these little things called dime cards, and they're a little plastic credit card size card. And inside, they have a silver dime, a pre-1964 silver dime, money that was still made with real substance before they started diluting down our coins and our currency into, fake money. And on the back, it shows what the value of silver is, what the value of this coin is, based on how the value of silver is changing. And we take those at the bookstore. And we are trying to encourage other people to do the same. It's not easy to change our lives. Our whole culture is dependent on this system. It's involved in every aspect, whether it's education, our food, whatever we ingest into our body, whether it is prescription drugs or non-prescription drugs, they're all some way touched by government. And I challenge you today to stand up and take ownership of your own life, and to sit down and think of all the ways that you can get out of this system and start building a new one that is based on freedom, that is based on love, that is based on mutual respect. For me, the first step was disobeying unjust laws. Martin Luther King was a great example of that. Rosa Parks was a great example of that. People who said, no, I will not comply with your rules. I will not comply with your edicts. I will not do as you demand, because it is not right. It is not right that black people go sit on the back of the bus. It is not right that the federal government issues a driver's license to every single person in this country. It is not right that the FDA won't let us smoke pot. It is not right that we fight aggressive wars across the country, across the globe. It is not right that our peace officers have turned into law enforcement officers who now work as a revenue generator for our municipalities. Because unfortunately, that is what they have become. It is not right. And I will not comply with their rules and their regulations, and I will not bend down, and I will no longer willingly participate in their systems of abuse. But what I will do, I will take care of my chickens, and I will take care of my garden. I'm going to homeschool my daughter, because I have a problem with the public education system, and instead of sitting there and begging them to change it, I am going to make sure that my daughter gets the education that I want her to have. I'm going to continue to build a silver barter economy. And I am going to work out my problems with my fellow human beings face to face. I am not going to sick the state on them. I absolutely will not do it, and I encourage you to commit to do the same. Woo! Doesn't just take owning your own actions. That's a long process. It might take us our whole lives. And I think my baby's getting hungry, so I'm going to get down soon. Adam, you took a little long. I had it timed out perfectly. But it might take our whole lives for us adults here living in this society, to change the way we live. But what we can do as adults is we can teach our children that violence is not the answer. Sure, defend yourself with vengeance. If someone comes after you, protect yourself. But if you have a problem with another human being, it is absolutely unacceptable for you to use violence against them, to aggress upon them. We need to teach our children about respect for fellow human beings, for property. And most importantly, we need to teach our children to respect themselves. We don't have to live in a society like this. We can live together in harmony and joy and thrive and be successful and prosperous. And that takes each of us doing what we love and following our own dreams. You don't have to go work for the man. You don't have to get a job sitting in a cubicle if you don't want to. You can start your own business. And you don't have to ask the government for permission. That's what agorism, this term agorism, I encourage you to Google it if you've never heard of it, or start page it. Agorism. It's the concept of a free and open market. People who are engaging in business unrestricted by the government. And if you commit fraud against another, your reputation will definitely prevent you from being a successful business person. For those of us who want to thrive, we have to stop asking for permission, and we have to start taking ownership, and we have to teach our children to do the same, because they are our only hope for freedom in our lifetimes. If our children can grow up not understanding what it means to point a gun at someone and say, I demand you pay for this. I demand you do this for my neighbor or my granddaughter or this random person. If we refuse to teach them that pointing guns at our fellow human beings is the solution, to all of our human problems, we can really start to see something beautiful happen. So I encourage all of you today to go look in the mirror and ask yourself, how am I contributing to the problem and what can I do to contribute to the solution? I hope to find out you all go get some chickens and plant some gardens, because it has been one of the most joyful things for me in my entire life. Thank you guys for having us here in Odessa. Please support the people who put on this event. If you get a chance, please go donate. And I beg of you, take responsibility. Don't blame anybody else. It's not the government's fault, it's ours. We don't have to lay down and take this. It is time we stand up and we build a free and prosperous society. Thank you. Woo!